The day my world ended was the same day. I realized I had never truly known the man. I'd called my husband for 40 years. It's strange how a single moment can split your life into a before and an after. How the smallest details, a missing key, a strange phone call, a letter left on the kitchen table, can unravel everything you thought was certain. If you had seen me that morning, humming softly as I watered the roses in our little garden, you would have thought I was the luckiest woman alive. But by sunset, I was standing in the ruins of my old life, clutching a suitcase and a secret I didn't yet understand. It started with a phone call. I was making tea, the kettle just beginning to whistle, when the phone rang. I almost didn't answer, my hands were full, and I expected it to be another telemarketer. But something made me pick up. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, clipped and businesslike. "Mrs. Malik? I'm calling from the bank. I'm afraid there's been an issue with your joint account." My heart skipped. "What kind of issue?" "I'm sorry, ma'am, but the account has been closed. All funds have been withdrawn." I felt the world tilt. "That's not possible. My husband—" "I'm very sorry. The paperwork was signed yesterday by Mr. Malik." I hung up, my hands shaking. I tried calling my husband, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I tried again and again until finally I left a message, my voice trembling. "Please call me. There's something wrong with the bank." I waited, pacing the kitchen, my mind racing through every possibility. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he'd gone to the bank himself and forgotten to tell me. But as the hours passed and the sun began to set, a cold certainty settled in my bones. Something was very, very wrong. When he finally came home, it was late. He didn't look at me as he walked through the door. Didn't ask about dinner or the garden or the neighbor's new puppy. He just went straight to the bedroom, closing the door behind him. I stood in the hallway, listening to the muffled sounds of drawers opening and closing, the soft thud of a suitcase being pulled from the closet. I knocked, my voice barely a whisper. "What's going on?" He opened the door, his face unreadable. "I'm leaving," he said simply. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, the explanation, the apology. But there was nothing. Just those two words hanging in the air like a sentence. "Why?" I managed to choke out. He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "It's just time." I need something different. I wanted to scream, to beg, to demand answers. But all I could do was watch as he packed his things, as he walked out the door, as he left me standing in the ruins of our life together. The days that followed were a blur. I called friends, family, anyone who might know where he'd gone. No one had seen him. The bank confirmed that every account, every investment, every asset had been emptied or transferred. The house, it turned out, was never really mine. The deed was in his name alone. Within a week, I received a letter from his lawyer. I had 30 days to vacate the premises. 40 years of shared birthdays, anniversaries, quiet evenings and loud arguments, of raising children and burying parents, of building a life brick by brick. And now nothing. Not even a place to call my own. I spent days wandering the empty rooms, touching the walls, the furniture, the photographs. I tried to remember when things had started to change, when the man I loved had become a stranger. But the memories blurred together, and all I could feel was the ache of loss. One evening, as I was packing away the last of my things, I found a small, battered box tucked away at the back of the closet. It was old, covered in dust, the lock rusted shut. I didn't remember ever seeing it before. Curious, I pried it open with a butter knife. Inside, I found a bundle of letters, yellowed with age, tied together with a faded blue ribbon. The letters were addressed to my husband, but the handwriting was unfamiliar. I hesitated, then unfolded the first one. The words inside made my breath catch. "My dearest, I hope this finds you well. The house is ready. No one knows but us. The key is hidden where we agreed. I'll wait for you always." There was no signature, no address, just those cryptic lines. I read through the rest of the letters, each one more mysterious than the last. They spoke of a house, of secrets, of promises made and broken. I felt a chill run down my spine. Had my husband been hiding something all these years? Another life? Another family? I spent the night turning the letters over in my hands, searching for clues. There was a mention of a town I'd never heard of, a street name that sounded vaguely familiar. I pulled out an old map and traced the route, my finger trembling as I realized it was only a few hours' drive away. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I had nothing left to lose. If there was a house, if there were answers, I was going to find them. The next morning, I woke before dawn, the letters still clutched in my hand. The house was silent, every echo a reminder of what I'd lost. I packed a small bag, just the essentials, as if I were going on a short trip, not a journey into the unknown. I tucked the letters into my purse, along with the map and a notebook. I didn't know what I expected to find, but I knew I couldn't stay in that empty house another day. As I drove out of the city, the sky was streaked with pink and gold. The roads were quiet, the world still waking up. I replayed every conversation I'd ever had with my husband, searching for clues I might have missed. Had he ever mentioned this town? This street? Had there been hints, small slips that I'd brushed aside as unimportant? The more I thought about it, the more I realized how little I truly knew about the man I'd shared my life with. The town was small, the kind of place you'd miss if you blinked. The main street was lined with old brick buildings, their paint peeling, their windows dusty. I parked near a faded sign that read, "Welcome to Willow Creek," my heart pounding in my chest. I pulled out the map and the letters, double-checking the address. There it was, Sycamore Lane. I set off on foot, the morning air crisp and cool. Sycamore Lane was even quieter than the rest of the town. The houses were old, their gardens overgrown, their fences leaning. I counted the numbers as I walked, my steps slowing as I reached the end of the street. There, half hidden behind a tangle of ivy and wild roses, was a small cottage. The paint was chipped, the windows clouded with dust, but there was something familiar about it, a sense of déjà vu, as if I'd seen it before in a dream. I hesitated at the gate, the letters heavy in my pocket. Was this really the place? I pushed open the gate, the hinges creaking in protest, and walked up the path. The front door was locked, but as I searched the porch, I remembered the line from the letter. "The key is hidden where we agreed." I knelt by the old flower pot, lifting it carefully. Beneath it, wrapped in oilcloth, was a small brass key. My hands shook as I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and the faint scent of lavender. The cottage was small but cozy, one bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a living room with a stone fireplace. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting patterns on the worn wooden floor. It was clear no one had lived here in years, but everything was neat, almost as if someone had been waiting for a guest. I wandered from room to room, searching for answers. There were no photographs, no personal belongings, just a few pieces of old furniture and a bookshelf filled with novels. In the bedroom, I found a trunk at the foot of the bed. Inside were more letters. These addressed to my husband, but written in the same unfamiliar hand. Some were decades old, others more recent. They spoke of longing, of waiting, of a love that had never faded. I sat on the bed, the letters spread out around me, trying to make sense of it all. Was this a secret lover? A friend? A relative? The letters never mentioned a name, only "my dearest" and "yours always." I felt a strange mix of anger and sadness. Had my husband loved someone else all these years? Had he built a secret life, a secret home, while I was left in the dark? As I read, a pattern began to emerge. The letters mentioned dates, anniversaries, birthdays, holidays. I realized with a jolt that many of these dates matched times. When my husband had been away on business, he'd always come back with gifts, stories, and a tired smile. I'd never questioned him. Why would I? We trusted each other. Or so I thought. I spent hours in the cottage piecing together the story. The more I read, the more I realized that the writer of the letters had never actually lived in the house. She'd visited, yes, but always alone. Always waiting for someone who never came. The last letter was dated 10 years ago. It was shorter than the others, the handwriting shaky. "My dearest, I fear I will not see you again. The house is yours now, as it always was in my heart. If you ever find this, know that I loved you, even from afar. I sat in the silence, the weight of the words pressing down on me. I didn't know what to feel. Betrayal, grief, relief? I was angry at my husband for his secrets. But I was also grateful for the truth, however painful. At least now I understood why he'd left me with nothing. He'd been living a double life, torn between two worlds, unable to truly belong to either. As the sun began to set, I locked up the cottage and walked back to my car. I drove to a small inn on the edge of town, my mind spinning with questions. Who was the woman in the letters? Why had my husband kept this house a secret? And what was I supposed to do now, with nothing but a handful of memories and a key to a house no one knew existed? That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The letters spread out on the bed beside me. I realized that I had a choice. I could walk away, leave the past behind, and start over. Or I could stay, dig deeper, and find out the whole truth. I didn't know what I would find. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this house was the beginning of something new. The next morning, I woke to the sound of birds outside, my window, and a sense of determination I hadn't felt in years. I packed up the letters, tucked the key safely into my pocket, and returned to the cottage on Sycamore Lane. The town was just beginning to stir, the bakery opening its doors, neighbors waving as they swept their porches. I felt like a stranger and yet somehow as if I belonged. Inside the cottage, the air was cool and still. I wandered through the rooms again, this time looking for anything I might have missed. In the kitchen, I found a loose floorboard beneath the old table. My heart raced as I pried it up, revealing a small tin box. Inside were more letters. But these were different: legal documents, deeds, and a will. My husband's name was on every page, but so was mine. The cottage, it turned out, had been purchased in both our names decades ago, before we'd even bought our family home. I sat at the table, the documents spread out before me, trying to make sense of it all. There was a letter addressed to me, written in my husband's familiar hand. My hand shook as I opened it. My dearest Amina, if you are reading this, it means I am gone, and you have found the place I could never bring myself to show you. I am sorry for the pain I have caused. I never meant to leave you with nothing. This house was always meant for you, a place of your own. A place where you could start again if you ever needed to. I know I have kept secrets, and for that I am truly sorry. But please know that you were always my heart, my home. Forgive me if you can. Yours always, Imran. Tears blurred my vision as I read his words. All the anger, the confusion, the betrayal I'd felt began to shift, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. He had left me, yes, but he had also left me this, an escape, a new beginning, a piece of himself I never knew existed. I spent the next few days in the cottage, cleaning, repairing, making it my own. The neighbors were curious but kind, offering help and sharing stories about the house. Some remembered seeing my husband in town years ago, always alone, always quiet. No one knew about the letters, the secret visits, the life he'd hidden from everyone, even me. As I worked, I found myself thinking about the woman who had written the first set of letters. I searched the town records, the library, even the local cemetery, but found nothing. Whoever she was, she had vanished without a trace, leaving only her words behind. I wondered if she had ever found peace, if she had ever known how much her letters would mean to me. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sun set over the wild roses, I realized that I was no longer angry. My life had been shattered, yes, but in its place was something unexpected, a sense of freedom, of possibility. I was no longer defined by my marriage, my loss, or even my husband's secrets. I was simply myself, standing at the threshold of a new life. I decided to stay in Willow Creek. The cottage became my sanctuary, a place where I could heal and rediscover who I was. I planted new flowers in the garden, painted the walls, filled the rooms with laughter and music. I made friends, joined the local book club, volunteered at the library. Slowly, the pain faded, replaced by gratitude for the second chance I'd been given. Sometimes I would sit by the fireplace, the letters spread out before me, and wonder what my husband had been thinking all those years. I would never know the whole truth, but I no longer needed to. The past was gone and the future was mine to shape. On the anniversary of the day he left, I wrote a letter of my own. I placed it in the tin box beneath the floorboard alongside the others. Dear Imran, thank you for the house, for the memories, for the chance to begin again. I forgive you. I hope you have found peace wherever you are. With love, Amina. As I replaced the floorboard and stood up, I felt lighter than I had in years. The house no one knew existed had become my home, not because of the secrets it held, but because of the life I chose to build within its walls. And so, after 40 years of marriage, after losing everything, I found myself again, not in the ruins of my old life, but in the quiet beauty of a new beginning.